Hello, everybody. Hello once again, and welcome to the chat. I am Bill, the company's expert, and it's great to be here with you guys today. It's such a beautiful day here. And I see that several people are here already. We got 6 people here. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. Hopefully, we'll be able to learn together. If you have any questions that I can help you with, usually regards to hiring, job interviews, resumes, that whole kind of thing, feel free to ask them. I'm here to answer any questions I can. And we're going to jump right into it. I see that Christine is here. Christine says, "Good morning. I missed the last couple of live videos. Hoping all is well." All is well, Christine. Thank you for your well wishes, and I'm glad you could join me today. There's some weird things going on with the light in my office here. It's actually extremely bright, and I had to turn my monitor's brightness up to full, and now I almost want to squint because it's quite bright. I had to do that to see it over the sun. Hot Dice Miniatures is here. Holy crap, that's a great name. Do you perhaps sell Hot Dice Miniatures? Because I find myself intrigued by that. I might check out your channel later on. But thank you for being here. There's 20 people here now. You know what? Let's just jump right into it, and you guys can ask me questions as you go. There, you should see a chat to the right of the main window, at least if you're on the desktop, and type in your question, and I'll answer them in order. Let's just jump in. You know, a question I heard yesterday, somebody was asking this, and I know a lot of people wonder this, is I recommend as an answer to when somebody asks you, what are your strengths, or why should we hire you, any of those kind of jobs, or any of those kind of questions, I recommend that you say how you meet the requirements. And I've said that in many videos. The problem is the question I get back from a lot of people is, what if I don't meet the requirements? What if I don't meet the requirements? In the job posting, they say, we're looking for this. We're looking for someone with this education, these skills, this degree. You know, and they have this, they have that, they have this, they have that. What if I don't meet all those? Should I just not mention it, or should I try my best to avoid any kind of conversation on that? What do I do? And listen, my response to that, my blanket response to that, if you were wondering that, is this, okay? If you were invited for a job interview, they know precisely what you have. What I mean by that is they've read your resume. They know what you've got and what you don't have. And regardless of what you have or what you don't, they invited you for the interview. Now that signals something. That signals that what you've said on your resume hasn't eliminated you, okay? And usually what happens is those requirements that they put in the job posting, a lot of the times, almost all the time, not all of those are true requirements. A lot of them are things that are nice to have, you know? They put them as requirements because they're hoping that, you know, they can get people with all of those, but usually that's a tall order. So maybe a couple of them are actual true requirements. The rest are things that are nice to have, meaning that they're not really a requirement, okay? So if you don't have them, it's not a big deal. The fact that they called you to the interview anyway signals that they don't consider it a deal breaker, that they haven't seen that on your resume, okay? So that's the first thing you need to understand. Second thing, oh, hi from Southern Germany, Dennis Humphreys. The second thing is that, what was the second thing? I'm thinking about Southern Germany now. I think that's Bavaria, right? It's Bavaria. Bavaria's in the south, right? There's Silesia. There's a few places like that. Anyway, okay, number one, not all the requirements are true requirements. Secondly, okay, even if you partially meet the requirement, you know, it says like, we're looking for someone with 5 years experience in this. Maybe you have 2 years, okay? You don't have 5 years, and maybe you're worried about that, okay? Remember, if you're worried, like I said, the fact that they called you to the interview and they know because it says on your resume that you got 2 years experience in that only, that signals that they don't really care about the 5-year thing. 2 years would be sufficient, okay? So the other thing is that What they're looking for is to make sure that none of those requirements are going to be a problem. So if you only have 2 years in something and they said they wanted 5, okay, you talk about the 2 years. You say, I've done this for 2 years, okay? But in that 2 years, I've learned all this stuff. I've been exposed to all these different elements of it. I haven't just done one task for 2 years. I've done many things in that 2 years. There's never been an issue. There's never been a problem. I've managed to accomplish these things, stuff like that. And when they hear that, they go, okay. It's clear that this requirement is not really going to be a problem with you, right? So you pass on that requirement, okay? If it is a requirement, you pass. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? All you have to assure them is that that thing that they're looking for, it's not going to be a problem. Either you have it, or you have it partially, or you have a substitute for it. Okay, I've seen a lot of postings where they say, we want this educational qualification, we want this certificate. My favorite is when they say, we want this certificate or equivalent experience. Well, come on, there is no equivalent experience for a certification. They're two different things. To me, that signals that either A, they don't know what the hell they're talking about, B, that certificate, that certification isn't really required. And C, it's not going to be a problem if you worked in the job. That negates the purpose for having that certificate, right? In their mind. So the point is, if you can give a substitute, you can say, look, I don't have that certification. However, what I do have is this other thing. And this other thing that I have, this other certificate or this other work experience, it pretty much covers all the essential points of what you're looking for that's covered in that certification. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a pretty good substitute. I don't anticipate any problems being able to apply that knowledge if I were to get into this job. Something like that. And when they hear that, they go, oh, okay, so that's not going to be an issue with you. And you pass, or at least you pass that requirement. Hello from California, Moonlight. California Moonlight. Awesome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, just ask them in the chat. And Roman, I don't want to forget Roman. Roman was up here before Dennis. He says, good day, Roman. When I hear the name Roman, I think of Roman Polanski. That kind of dates me a little bit. Hot Dice Miniature says, I'm going to college for electronics engineering. Part of my program is 3 co-op terms. For my first co-op term, I ended up landing a position that I didn't need to interview for. Red flag, because the position sucked. Hey, tell it like it is. Finished that, going into my second term with another company, which I didn't interview for either. But in between those, I did go for an interview. I walked into a technical interview. Underslept, not knowing what was coming up. 4-page test was on the table. Yeah, those are always fun. That's what they tend to do with you when you're coming out of school. As if you haven't done enough tests and qualifications, they feel the need to run you through a lot of aptitude tests, intelligence tests, all that kind of stuff. Group activities, group interviews. It's annoying. It can be insulting. It's because they don't know what they're doing. They really don't. A lot of the times people giving you these things just don't, they don't know the subject matter themselves. So it can be very frustrating. Unfortunately, it's a necessary evil. I had to do that type of crap like 30 years ago, whatever it was, when I came out of school for engineering, not electronics engineering. A little bit different, but yeah, same type of thing. I've never had to deal with interviews that were that annoying or that time consuming ever since. So this is something that you encounter in academia and in co-op programs, internships, that kind of thing. I have never seen that really done like that once you have some career experience under your belt. Once you get your first career job, unless you're going into like R&D or something, usually your grades and all that academic stuff no longer matters. Once you've had like your first career job, maybe you've been in a job 1 year, 2 years, whatever, and then you are going on to your next career job, they don't care about any of that stuff ever again. So that's the good news. There is a shelf life for this kind of stuff. So if you can endure this kind of silliness, the good news is that you shouldn't have to do much more of it. I'm just going to finish Hot Dice Miniatures. He says, just wanted to share my story. Been following the channel since I started college, enjoying the journey, and glad to say hi. Well, hi, and thanks for being here. Soothen? Is that how you say it? Soothen? I need to wear a fedora when I say that word. Maybe a pencil-thin mustache, too, while I'm at it. Hi, sir. My question is, I applied for a job in one of my dream companies 3 months before. The status showed screened in. What does it mean? And I didn't hear back anything and no updates. To be honest with you, I'm not super familiar with that term, screened in. I mean, we could Google it, but I don't know if that means that the position is in process. It's being filled. Okay. Yeah, I don't know specifically what that means. You know, a lot of these companies, they have their own particular lingo. Now, this could also be a cultural thing. Maybe some countries around the world, they have slightly different culture, and maybe that's something that they use in HR terms to indicate a specific thing. I'm not familiar with what screened in means in this context. So sorry about that. It doesn't sound particularly appealing. Madpulse says lots of learning during sucky failures. Yeah, you know, that's unfortunately kind of how it goes. We do our learning mostly from failures. So, you know, it doesn't have to be this thing that stings you really hard. You know, it is possible to sort of manage the risk a little. But trying things, you know, that's the thing. We learn by trying things. We learn by going through different experiences. And, you know, it's usually the failures that teach us the most, right? Success is, in my experience, success is usually, there's almost no learning value there. And actually, it can be quite harmful because if you try something, you succeed, you don't know if it was because of merit, because of you did something right, or it could have been luck. It could have been you were in the right place at the right time. It was a freak occurrence and not something that you can easily repeat. This is what you're unaware of, right? So success can be a little bit dangerous in that regard. There's a lot of people out there that, you know, we're talking about jobs and careers and that kind of stuff. You know, they get a job right out of school. They get one job, right? Like in a true sort of job search. And then what they do is they sort of stay in that organization for the next 20, 30 years, moving up or moving sideways. And they never have that experience again of essentially having to sell themselves, you know, especially organizations where it's based on seniority, it's based on other things other than, you know, you sort of selling yourself, you're making a case for yourself. And so they tend to miss a pretty important experience, you know, and they also miss, I think, out on a few life experiences that everybody who is in a job search, you guys know, I mean, job searches are not fun. And for a lot of people, especially young people, when you're starting out, it can be a very traumatic experience, you know, very stressful. And it can really pop the ego bubble quite a bit, you know. This is well known. And for people who are in that place right now, you're probably not going to believe me when I say that in hindsight, a little bit of that I think is good because it sort of gives you more of a sort of objective view of the world and your value and your place in it and stuff like that. The good news is that it's usually very temporary. Okay, it's temporary. You know. Anyway, I've done videos on that, how it feels to be in that situation, and I know it's not fun. Let's see here. Now, did I skip over somebody? I don't think so. Hot Dice Miniatures. Okay, I answered that. Christine, I'm updating my references. Any tips? Well, listen, references are something that is very specific to the employer. Okay, it depends, or the HR department of the employer. Some people, they don't want anything. Some people, they want one personal reference. I've seen all kinds. For example, usually when you do executive search, they want 9 references. They want, what was it? It was like 3 people who have been your superior in 3 different jobs. They want 3 people who are your coworkers. They want 3 people who are your subordinates. And you can't just give them people that they can't verify. They need to be able to verify these people are still in these positions. They're valid. It can't just be a voice on the other end of the phone that they don't know who that is. It really runs the gamut. So for references, there really isn't like a one size fits all. So I would try and find out, the places you're applying to, when they ask for references, what type of references and how many do they need? If you're going in totally blind, you might want, I would say, maybe 3 coworkers or people that have worked with you professionally, so they can vouch for you professionally, and maybe 1 or 2 other people who are just personal references. They can vouch for you as a person. Just that would be a good starting point. And it's good to make sure you talk to these people in advance and say, like, look, I would like to use you as a reference if that's okay. I might be applying for a couple of jobs in the next couple of months. And if I were to give them your number, would that be okay? Would you be able to give me a good reference? And just have them say, yes, sure, that's okay. Yeah, I'll give you a good reference. That's the only real work you have to do. And then you supply a sheet of paper or a document that has these names on it with their phone number, with an email address. But I mean, usually people use the phone number. I would give phone numbers. Like, I know we're moving beyond phone numbers for a lot of communications, but I would just give that as a default. And if they want anything else, if they want, any kind of social networking connection, contact or anything, I would ask. Okay. But that's what I would do as the default. Hello from India. Hello from Canada. Mad Pulse. Early discussions with recruiter. Sounds like they think you are a good fit. They ask if it's okay to send your resume to the company if you say yes. Okay. What happens if you say no to the offer? Offer? You mean like to their request to send your resume? Well, then you don't get the job, I guess, right? That's probably what I would expect. We see that with independent HR companies. Like, if what's been happening increasingly over the last 20 years is that a lot of companies farm out their HR function. Okay. At least when it comes to recruitment and selection, that's very common. So the person contacting you, who's a recruiter, they don't actually work for the company that's hiring. The company that's hiring is their client. So the company that's hiring has contacted them and said, find me some candidates that have these requirements. And, they get a list of clients together and they do some interviewing, usually themselves. They refine that pool of talent. And what's common is for them to end up with the last 3. So when they've narrowed it down to 3 people, they will call in their client, which is the hiring company, the company that's actually looking to hire somebody. And the last round of interviews will be with the recruiter and the company. So usually the hiring manager will be attending those interviews. So, it depends where you are in that process, but that's usually what's going on. So if they're asking you this question, they're probably at the beginning stage or not in the final round. Okay. Pranay says, how to resign from a new job if you got a better offer from another company. Well, that's a pretty good problem to have, right? Look, it's really not a major problem, because if you've got a better job offer, then that's good. First of all, I would not resign until the absolute end, okay? Like, make sure that this offer is in writing, make sure this offer is confirmed, okay? You don't want to be in a situation where it sort of dries up at the last minute and then you're left with nothing, okay? So that's very important. Secondly, keeping in mind that number one thing I said, okay, you don't want to resign until it's absolutely confirmed, it's in writing, it's signed, there's no remaining issues, no important things that are undecided or you haven't gotten an answer for, okay? Make sure all of that is done first, and then you can think about resigning, okay? That's what I would do. And that's what I have done, actually. And, listen, you just want to do it professionally. You want to tell your boss to their face. You don't want to send an email. You don't want to send a text, okay? You want to make sure that you do it in person. You say verbally, in person to your boss, look, so you know, I'm resigning. I'm going to tender my resignation. Here are the details. They don't really care too much about the details other than when you're resigning and this. And I would make sure that you don't advance a lot of information that you don't need to. I wouldn't say where you're going to. I wouldn't say the circumstances of how you got hired. That is, not only is it not their business, but if they're angry, okay, and they were, shall we say, less than forthright, they could sabotage you using that information, okay? So you don't advance any of that. Okay, and then after you speak to your boss face-to-face to do this, then you immediately send an email, and all the email does is say, as per our discussion, I am resigning as of this date. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best. No negativity, okay? I know it's sometimes tempting to really vent a lot of anger and frustration you may have had at that job towards your boss or towards other people, whatever. Look, I'm older now, so I say no, don't do it. But when you're young, you're not going to listen to an older guy like me. You're going to just let it fly, and you're going to keep it real. And I have done that. But I know of other people that have done that, and it's come back to bite them. So for that reason, I mean, why subject yourself to, leave yourself open to more trouble? Like, the goal is to minimize bad things in your life, and that just invites them. So that's what I would say. Okay, so you do the verbal thing, and then you also just send a very quick email so it's in writing, and all it says is that you're resigning as of this time. You send it to your boss. You send it to possibly your boss's boss also. More than one person, so that somebody gets the message. You can maybe send it to HR, you copy them on it, and that's good, okay? Like, if you've done that, that's it. That's all you need to do. Okay? Madpole says, offer like you go through the process and decline the company offer. Now, Madpole's was... Like, look, if you're declining an offer, I don't really see what the question is. You're declining it. Maybe if I've misunderstood what you're saying, just please write some more. But yeah. Should you tell the other company that you have an offer from another company? Yes, under certain circumstances, yes, and assuming that you don't freely talk about it, because what's probably going to happen is that they're going to have a bunch of questions, okay? Who's given you the offer? How much is it for? When would you start? What type of work would you do? Who's your contact person? They're going to try and maybe ask some of that. Don't give them that information, okay? Because, like I was saying earlier, they can use it to sabotage you, and that has been known, okay? If you have an offer in your pocket, this is like playing poker, okay? You got your cards, right? You don't show everyone your cards. What's important for them is that if this is a firm offer and it's really good, the only thing that concerns them is if you haven't decided automatically just to leave, the only remaining issue is, can they match it? Okay. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to show them your offer. You don't have to tell them all about it. The only thing that matters is you say to them, look, I enjoy working here and I'd like to stay. However, I have received another offer. It's for this amount and these benefits or whatever. Can you match it? And they will give you an answer. You can say, look, I need you to, if I haven't heard by this date, then I have to assume that I'm just going to accept the offer. So you put a time deadline on it. You know what I mean? And that's really the only thing you would disclose to them. And if they either say no or they just don't get back to you, then you leave. It's just simple as that. If you're not even wanting to see if they can match it, then there's no real discussion at all. You don't disclose anything. You just put in your resignation and then leave. The less they know about it, the better. Okay? The offer is in writing. Okay, good. Yeah, it should be. You don't do anything verbally. Anything verbally in this context doesn't exist. Like, it's not real unless it's in writing. So yeah. Naveen, hello. I recently had an interview with Wells Fargo as a software developer. Cleared all the interviews. Had a confirmation with the HR regarding the CTC. And you have to tell me what CTC is. It's not possible for me to know every acronym in the world. And location, yet didn't receive the offer. Okay. If you have a question, let me know. You're welcome, Christine. Suthan says, yes, sir. Is it okay to reach out to HR after a job application? If I reach out, do they think that I'm desperate and reject my application? What to do after the application? Listen, here's how this stuff works, okay? It doesn't matter what people think. If they're going to read into, oh, they're contacting me, that must mean they're this or they're that. None of that matters, okay? If you haven't heard, the only thing that is real that matters is that you just want to make sure that your application didn't fall through the cracks, okay? That's the only real reason you have to follow up on that stuff, okay? They're going to do whatever they're going to do. They're going to make a decision. It's going to be based on whatever criteria they're using, okay? It could be totally forthright and above board, or it could be absolutely idiotic and out to lunch. You don't know. You don't see that, okay? The only thing that's relevant is they got your application and they don't have any more questions, okay? So if there's any chance that they might not have received it, like you didn't receive a confirmation or something like that, maybe somebody said they were going to get back to you, but they didn't, that's a legitimate reason to follow up. Just want to make sure you got my application. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much. And that's it. And then what you do is you move on to worry about creating more opportunities for yourself. If they get back to you, great. You're going to give them your undivided attention. But if you don't hear anything, you don't hear anything. And that's how these things go. It's just random chance. Okay? Don't spend a lot of time, effort, and stress second guessing yourself and psychologically analyzing what you should do when. None of that's real. I understand it's very hard not to do that, okay, because you're very nervous and this could be an amazing opportunity. We all get nervous, we all feel like that. We run it over in our minds. But dwelling on that stuff is not good for your mental health and it doesn't do any good. So focus on the next job, applying for more things, creating more opportunities for yourself. That's what actually produces results. Mad pulls. In the example, some gave with a better offer from a new company. How do you not burn bridges? Is a 2-week notice still the standard? Well, the notice is going to vary depending on many things, including where you are and what the local laws are, the employment standards are. And that's also going to vary by how long you've been with the company. Where I am, okay, if you work for, say, 30 days or less, you don't have to give any notice. If you work like up to 1 year, you have to give a week's notice. If you work 2 years or more, you give like 2 weeks notice. If you work 10 years, you got to give 4 weeks notice. So you got to find out what your local laws are. You can do that with Google or a search engine of your choice. You just go and type in like employment standards and then your country or region. And then usually that'll pull up the law. And then you have the law, like you're like looking at the actual law. It's like all this text. And you just use Control F, like find on page, to where it says notice. Look for notice. And then it'll be like maybe 5 sentences, and it will tell you exactly what you need to do for notice. Usually the employment standards branch, when you do a Google search for employment standards in your location, usually you also get a phone number for the entity that polices all that stuff. So you don't even have to look at the law yourself. You just call the number and say like, look, I got an employment question. How much notice do I have to give my employer? Okay, I'm in this region. I've been working for this amount of time. How much notice do I legally have to give? And they'll give you an immediate answer, okay, because they're the experts on it. Okay, it varies all over the world. So that's the best way to do it. Thank you. Oh, I need a drink break. Ah, that's the stuff. Okay. Richard Durant. Oh, one last thing for Mad Polls. Like, listen. What you can do also, okay, I'm not necessarily recommending this. I'm saying you can do this if you wish, is that let's say the legal requirement was 2 weeks, okay? If you have a particularly good relationship with your boss, if your boss and the company has a history of being reasonable and treating people well, you can give more notice than the legal requirement, okay? I'm not necessarily recommending that to everybody because there are a lot of bad companies out there that will throw that back in your face. They will terminate you earlier, something like that. Okay. So I'm just saying you don't always have to give the absolute legal limit. You can give more. I have it on my LinkedIn profile. I gave 9 months notice on a job once. That worked out really well, actually. But I mean, yeah, I wouldn't do that for most other jobs I've had. Richard says, hello from Wyoming. Wyoming, you only have like 500,000 people that live there or something, isn't it? Like, it's not that many people live in Wyoming. Your channel has been a great tool and resource. It has been very helpful in past interviews. Thank you. As I moved into a leadership role within my agency, thank you for your content. Hey, my pleasure, Richard. I'm glad that it's doing some good. And thank you for saying that. It's very, very gracious of you. I don't think I've ever met anyone from Wyoming, to my knowledge. So, right on. It's a first. New Mercies. One thing I learned is to never burn bridges. Already leaving the company you have said you are not happy there. Yeah, I mean, there are sometimes mitigating circumstances, okay? If somebody made you the offer of a lifetime, blah, blah, people understand. But yeah, I mean, that's important if you're within a specific industry and that's where you're staying and it's a small world, or you're in like a city or something and the city's not huge. It's like, a smaller city. And so the size of that particular industry, that world within that industry is very finite. It might only be like, 1,000 people in that industry. So if you burn some bridges there, word can spread fast. And if you're staying in that little world, that can come back to bite you later. So yes. Now, if you're changing industries or you're moving halfway around the world or whatever, I suppose there's nothing really preventing you from doing it. The odds of it coming back to harm you are pretty remote. So technically you could get away with it, although I wouldn't recommend that. Okay, New Mercies. What should one prepare in the second round interviews after you have met the hiring manager in the first round? Listen, usually the way it works, okay, the second interview, they go deeper. Okay, the first round is simply to weed out people that just have something obvious wrong with them. Okay, second round is when they go a little bit deeper. Now they want to get to know people. They want to go beyond the superficial to really find out what makes you tick. Okay, that's generally what the second interviews are for. So I don't know if this is really a danger, but a lot of candidates, they go to the first round, they're nervous. They go to the second round, they feel not quite as nervous because they've already been to that place. They've already met these people before. So you're not venturing into the unknown quite as much as you were on the first interview. The problem is the second round interview, that's where they go a lot deeper. So you really don't want to let your guard down for the second interview. Okay. That's a general sort of template. I mean, there are variations from that, but that's usually how it works. You're absolutely welcome, Susan. Thank you for asking such intelligent questions. Cruiser Blader, right on. Cruiser Blader says, what should we do when the job description is not completely matched with our skills that we have? I started off this live stream talking about that. Short answer is, what should you do? Well, you apply anyway, right? As much as possible, you try and fit what you have to their requirements, okay? Now, if you get invited for an interview, that signals that what you have pretty much satisfies the technical requirements that they're looking for, okay? Or that those requirements were never really requirements in the first place. They were sort of nice to haves, right? Okay, so when you go to the interview and you're worried that, I don't really meet the things that they said, don't sweat it. It's an illusion, okay? All you have to do is talk up how what you have, how that is a substitute, or it ticks the requirement for the things they're looking for, okay? So if they want a certificate in something, and maybe you don't have that certificate, but you do have 10 years experience in it, you could say, well, I don't have that, but I do have this. And in that experience, I've done many things. I've really learned, all aspects of that topic, and I have those skills, and I retain them, and I've refined them over the years. So I really don't feel that certificate is not having that certificate is going to hold me back, because I've heard about that certificate and I've met people that have that requirement, and they don't really have more capabilities than I have in my experience with them. Something like that. And so you're basically saying, look, I have an acceptable substitute for that requirement. And that should work, because the fact that you've been called for an interview, that's evidence that that's not even really a hard requirement anyway. Madpole says, what's the best way to leverage your offer from a new employer with your current employer? Should you ask for the current employer to match, or do you get aggressive since you have a firm offer? Look, that's up to you. Obviously, the more aggressive you are about something you don't have is, you're taking more risk, right? So that's up to you to decide. If you're in the position where you can sort of jump and take a big risk, great. But, the more risk you take, obviously you have to be prepared for the downside. The thing is, any competing job offer you get is a risk, because you aren't working there yet. Oh, sure, you've got a piece of paper, but let's say they call you tomorrow and say, I'm very sorry, the company they've just rescinded their job offer. They can't hire you now. They simply don't have the money. The quarterly results came out and they're having to make cutbacks now rather than hiring. So very sorry, but we can't honor the agreement. Now, okay, maybe you're willing to spend tons of money taking them to court on it. Okay, 99% of people don't. You know what I mean? So the point is, it's a good indication that you're going to have it, but it still isn't technically in the bag yet. Okay, so it is a risk. And the more you push for them, the more of a risk it is. Now, speaking as an employer, okay, the employer's perspective is that all employees feel to a certain degree that they are underpaid. Doesn't matter how much money you're making. They all feel underpaid. We all feel underpaid, no matter what we're being paid. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people genuinely are underpaid, okay? But the point is, even people that they're being paid quite well for what they do, even they feel that they deserve more, okay? So you can expect that type of response from an employee. They always will argue that they should be paid more, okay? A lot of employees don't understand the finances of the business. They don't really see how, like if you paid everyone what they felt they were worth, you would go bankrupt. You wouldn't be able to do it. That's the problem. The other thing is that you set a precedent. If you pay this person more, then by rights, you should pay all the other people at that level more. And maybe that's what they can't do, right? So employers are kind of expecting you to use any possible argument, okay, to argue why they should pay you more, okay? And they hear that a lot, and usually it's just hot air. So unfortunately, that leads to the behavior where until you're willing to act on that, they kind of don't believe you, right? And I've seen a lot of cases where employees actually have to quit, give their resignation, and not show up the next day for the employer to finally call them at home and say, okay, we're willing to give you what you ask for. So obviously it depends on who you're dealing with, but that is a factor. You're welcome, Mad Pools. SHA says hello, and then does this. Yeah, right on. It's good to have you here too. Angel Franco, or Angel, says, what should I say on a job interview if they ask about a felony? This happened when I was 19 years old. Now I'm 44. I guess that's an American thing. Felonies. That's like a serious crime, right? Well, I imagine that if you lie, okay, that's going to have bad consequences. And I believe that's something that they can confirm pretty easily, right? They can do a criminal check, and they can reveal that quite easily that you have a criminal record. So, I mean, I don't recommend that you lie. I recommend that you admit to it if you do in fact have a felony in the past. You've been convicted of a felony for which you haven't received a pardon. The only thing you could say in your favor, something that I would consider would be saying like, look, okay, that was, like you said, that was when I was 19, now I'm 44, and I've had a flawless record as an employee since then. There's never been any issues. As part of the, if we get as far as the reference process, which I certainly hope we do, I will be able to provide you with all of my previous bosses in that time that can all vouch for the fact that I've been an exemplary employee, and there's never been any issues with trustworthiness or any kind of thing like that. So you can try and make a case for yourself that way, and I would respond to that. You're saying like, look, I'm not just talking a good game. I'm willing to prove it with giving you references and all this kind of stuff, and that would carry weight for me, and I know that carries weight for other people. So that's what I would do. But I mean, the only other thing you could do there is lie, and I don't recommend that. It's like a lot of things. Some people will hire people with criminal records, and some people won't. And that's the employment game. It's about connecting with people that value the things you have, and they don't consider any of your drawbacks a drawback. That's what this whole process is about. It's about connecting to employers that see your value. This is just another element of that. Okay, whoa, I'm falling quite behind here. I have to speed this up. What's the purpose? Richard says, what's the purpose and how do you respond to an interview question? If we were at a party, how would your friends describe you? That one took me off guard in a recent interview. That is a thinly disguised form of saying, tell me about yourself. So give the answer for tell me about yourself, where you basically give some compact form of your resume. Check out my video on that. No problem, you mercies. Cruiser Blader, thank you very much. Absolutely, you're absolutely welcome, Cruiser Blader. Thank you for asking a really good question. Saeed says, what could be the issue when someone gets invited to the second or third interview multiple times and then end up being not selected? Listen, that falls under the category of second guessing yourself, overanalyzing, overthinking. Okay, the reality is, first of all, before anything else is even considered, usually you have many, many applicants and only one job to fill. And there's many people that would be qualified, but you have to choose someone. And sometimes it even comes to almost just flipping a dice at the end, or flipping a coin, or rolling a die at the end. You know, it's simply a matter of luck. Okay. Now, the fact that you got to the third interview, that tells me, I'm making the assumption here that in the third interview, all your technical requirements, they're met. Okay. If there was any kind of thing that they actually used to not select you, it would be related to your personality, your attitude, all that kind of stuff. Because that's what they check for in the interviews, okay? It could be your opinions, you know, stuff like that. And then beyond that, just silly personal criteria that you have no control over. Like, I don't want someone that's tall or short, you know, like stupid things like that. I mean, you might laugh at that, but they use things like that. And as I said, like having been on the other side of it, I mean, you know, you have several candidates. A lot of times you want to hire them all, but you can't, you know, because they're all really good. You've got the really go-getter salesperson type, or you've got the really technical genius type, or you've got the, you know, person who's just friendly and an absolute pleasure to work with. I mean, how do you compare those three and make a decision? It's really not based on anything. Okay? This is a serendipitous process. The biggest factor involved, believe it or not, is random probability. So the idea is you just keep moving on to the next opportunity, and it's just a roll of the die, basically. You know, the more opportunities you have, the more odds you have of being hired. Helen Sons, when you say match your skills to the requirements, do you mean like software or soft skills? And if soft skills, how the heck do you put that onto your resume? Oh, you don't. You don't put that on your resume. That's what they have interviews for. And this is what you demonstrate by interacting with them. For example, if you go to the interview and you're just, you know, not happy, you're offended, you're upset, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter what's on your resume at that point. They're probably going to just reject you outright just for that. Okay. So, you know what I mean? So soft skills are unstated, and it's something you learn over time. It's something I've talked about extensively. And, yeah, it's not something you put on your resume, because they don't determine soft skills based on your resume. That's what the interviews are for. Nana Collins says, thank you so much. I'm really grateful. You're absolutely welcome. Cole Silva says, I'm on my fifth and final interview, but the first with an executive. What can I expect from this interview? Okay, executives are going to look at more bigger picture stuff. Okay. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons why they could be there. The most likely is that they're going to see if you fit with basically the culture of the organization. Okay. Do you have the right attitude? Do you have the right outlook? You know, the way you interact with people, things like how you resolve conflict, that sort of stuff. That's what they're there to look for. Okay. And they're also there a lot of times too, especially in large organizations, quite honestly, because they don't trust their subordinates to hire the right person. They want final say. So it's not that they're really going to be contributing to the process. They just want to be there so that they could sort of pull the plug if their subordinate is about to go with somebody that they don't like. So that's the only reason why they're there sometimes, okay? But those are sort of the two most likely reasons that they would be there, okay? They're not going to care too much about technical qualifications. They're going to care more about your attitude and your potential. I really have to catch up here. Hey, Bill, you may remember me from asking you about sending in thank you email a few weeks ago. I just wanted to say thank you for all your helpful videos. I got the job at the end. Congratulations, Sai. That's great to hear. You know, you crushed it. You obviously did a fantastic job. So way to go. I'm going to give you a round of applause that time. That's good. And it's very nice of you to say so. Esma says, what's the difference between sales consultant and sales manager? Well, now you get the sort of fuzzy definitions of some of these terms. Usually the manager is obviously supervising a team of salespeople. Okay. Sales consultant could be their term for the people. Or it could mean literally a consultant, somebody who maybe has education in marketing, whereas the salespeople don't. So they can sort of sign off on some of the methodologies used or things like this. But if I had to guess, I would assume the consultant is the junior person. The manager is the manager of the consultants. Umar Farouk. Hello, sir. I'm a fresh graduate and I recently applied for an opportunity and had a series of interviews with managers as well as with the heads of department. Till now, I did 3 interviews with that organization. Now I'm shortlisted for the last round of interviews, probably with higher management. As for your experience, what kind of questions they can ask me? So this is the last round of interviews. Listen, what they're probably going to, I mean, like, look, it varies considerably, okay? But what they're probably going to do is if it's new people, like that's the thing. If it's the third round with the same people, they're going to go quite deep. They're going to ask you about, you know, your previous experiences, and they're going to be trying to get an idea of who you are, what your opinions are, what's your attitude towards different things, stuff like that. They're going to try and verify personal stories by asking you more details about it and, you know, this kind of thing. But if it's a third round of interviews and each round has had new people, they're probably going to ask you the same stupid questions again. We see a lot of that too, you know? So you could, like, depending on what it is, you could expect both of those. Okay. If it's different people, I would basically do more or less what you've been doing in the first 2 interviews. If it's the same people or the same person or something, I would just be able to, first of all, don't let your guard down. Don't like start thinking, oh yeah, we're friends, we're comfortable with each other. So you can maybe be a bit more relaxed and go off script and stuff. I wouldn't do that. Okay. That's a tactic some people use to get you to lower those defenses and keep it a bit more real and give a bit more honest details. And that's where they get you. So that's what I would say about it. Going into a sales job. Okay. Good. Hopefully it's not all commission. Dan older than it should. Okay, that's an intriguing name. At the end of the interview, when they usually ask any questions for us, what would you ask a question similar to what you don't like in this company or anything similar which might put them on the spot? You can. I wouldn't ask that. I wouldn't ask anything negative. You want them to feel good about you. You know, and part of that is not making them feel awkward. Okay. So I've done lots of videos on the types of questions you could ask. You could say, where's this industry going? You could ask about the role. You know, if I were to be in this role, what would be your expectations for me for the first 30, 60, 90 days? You could ask, what types of people are generally successful in this role? Things like that. Where do you see this organization going in the next couple of years? What's the biggest challenge for this organization? Or what's going to be the biggest challenge for the person in this role? Something like that. Like, all of those are fine. You really don't want to put them on the spot and make them feel awkward. Yes, I know technically you would be asking questions that are on your mind, but this process is a process where you want them to like you. You don't want to throw up any kind of issue. You don't want them to think, that's the person that made me feel awkward by asking me that dumb pointed question. Like you could ask, what's the thing you hate most about this company? Right? Like, maybe you're honestly wondering that, and that would be very useful to know. But the thing is, if you ask that in the job interview, they're probably not going to appreciate being asked that, because they can't really be honest with you. They're not going to say, oh yeah, this company's really terrible, actually. They treat people like crap, and I hate my job. I'm actually looking for, a way to leave it. I'm looking for something better. They're not going to tell you that, right? It would be kind of cool if they did. It would be a real red flag if they did. But, so they're going to have to say, no, I don't really have anything I don't like about this company. It's great, right? And they're not going to like doing that. So don't ask those types of questions. I don't care what anybody recommends you to do. I say don't ask those. Thank you, Matt Pulse. Matt Johnson, good morning. Good morning, Matt. I'm glad you could join us. Matt Johnson, 25 years is a long time. I would explore your options regarding answering that question. Yes, that was the felony business. Any advice for, this is KillSo77, any advice for transferring careers from a lower skill labor intensive occupation to a degree-based finance occupation? That's quite a shift. I want to meet someone who went from unloading trucks to being the chief financial officer of a Fortune 500 company. I want to meet that person. I would shake their hand, and I would ask them to tell me what their secret was. Any advice? Well, look, obviously it's a complete gear shift, what you're talking about. All I can say is that, assuming you have the technical skills, I'm assuming that's not an issue. Like someone was asking before, the soft skills are going to be a major part of this. Okay. And let me tell you something, no offense to a lot of accountants and finance people out there, but among accountants and finance people, it's certainly in my experience, they need more soft skills. They need to be nicer to people. I've never met a ton of like really friendly accountants that you just love to talk to. They always seem kind of, yeah, what do you want? You're wasting my time. What do you want? Kind of like those kinds of people, right? So if you're going to be in finance, it's a white collar job. I mean, usually. And so soft skills are going to matter a lot more. Okay. Way more than they did as a laborer. Okay. If you're doing a labor intensive type job, even if it's like a very highly skilled labor type job. Okay. You're repairing expensive equipment, whatever. Those are very well paid jobs, but they're labor jobs. You're working with your hands. Here you're working with your brain and your mouth, right? And communication is super important. So having great communication skills is really important. So I would focus on that. Helen Sons. You're perfectly welcome, Helen Sons. Corner Clubhouse says, and I agree with that. John Miller says, I applied for a job on Indeed, and I had to do some Indeed tests. Oh my God, you have my deepest sympathy. The result was proficient, not excellent. Should I do these tests for other jobs, or should I avoid them? What's your opinion on this? I think those tests are bullshit. I'll just say it. I think all tests of that nature are bullshit. How would they know? Listen, okay, I'll be kind and I'll say like, maybe a lot of those tests, they might be valid. Okay, let's say they are. Like things like an intelligence test. Okay, you take an intelligence test. Okay. It might not be bullshit, but how relevant is that for how successful you're going to be in a job? There's a lot of intelligent people out there that cannot be trusted or are absolutely insufferable to work with or completely unreliable. So I mean, okay, intelligence is a factor, but in isolation, I would argue it's a very limited use. I mean, what are they looking for? What are they looking for really? You see, those types of tests, I'm a bit cynical because if you go and you look at the history of how they do recruitment and selection, you look at a lot of these tests, all the tests that they've used in the past, like the vast majority of them have been debunked, okay? They've shown that they don't correlate with, successful employees, right? So I'm assuming that trend is continuing and all the tests we're using now, it's going to be the same, and I mean, even if they are valid for their particular area, how important is that area in isolation? I say it's not very, and I've seen all kinds. I've seen people that are like, amazing soft skills while simultaneously completely incompetent. I've seen people that are absolute geniuses. They have technical abilities, that would make you blush, but you can't work with them, or they're missing knowledge in key other areas. They don't have that breadth of skill sets that allows them to function in an organization. So, I mean, you really need a breadth of skill sets and you need like a depth in one area, at least presumably the area in which you're working. So, whatever. I don't put much validity in a lot of that stuff. And that's the stuff they use for lower level jobs, worker level jobs. When was the last time you saw an executive have to pass a intelligence test to get their vice president job? Answer me that. What type of Cole says, thank you. What types of questions could I expect from the executive and what types of questions should I ask will be a sales role? I mean, that's very general. It's like saying what types of questions would a recruiter ask? It's just a whole universe of stuff they could ask. As I said, they're going to be paying more attention to your attitudes, your opinions, this kind of thing, your background. I would say Google that. Like if you know the type of job you're going for, Google questions for that job. Like if you're up for, say, I don't know, customer service representative, go to Google and say customer service representative job interview questions, and then just look at those and you get the idea. And some of those are going to be asked by executives. What a lot of people do, like hiring managers, is because most of them don't come from an HR background, what they're going to do is they're going to put your resume on the table. And when it comes time for them to ask you a question, they're going to ask you a question about something on your resume. They're going to say, I see you worked for 3 years in this role at this company, and I see that you say this. What's that about? Why, could you explain that role? Or you have this accomplishment where you claim that you saved $150,000 in this project by an improvement you made. Give me the details of that. Or, you say you had you were part of a team that did a project that resulted in a 30% efficiency gain for this manufacturing process. Explain what you did. Tell me about that. What was your role? Things like this. They're going to use the resume as the guide to the interview. Okay? That's what a lot of hiring managers do. That's what I've done. It's also a substitute for not knowing these standard silly job interview questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Stuff like that. Madpull says you want them to like you. Huge advice. Yes, it is. That's the single most important thing that's important for a job interview. is you like that redundancy. I like to put a few extra words into everything I say. Yeah, like the number one thing you want is you want them to leave the job interview thinking, I like that person. I enjoyed talking to them, and I'd love to talk to them more. That's what you want to leave them with, okay? Sometimes it's easier said than done because, let's face it, a lot of recruiters are some of the most miserable people you're going to find in an organization. But so that can be a near impossible feat sometimes. But generally speaking, that's what you want. You want to be the most likable candidate. Because let me tell you something, if they like you, they can overlook a lot of things if they like you, especially the hiring manager. If the hiring manager likes you, right? They think like, we click. I enjoy talking to them. When I say something, they just get it. They don't like get offended. They don't like, they seem to have a very friendly, accommodating attitude. That's huge. It really is huge, like you said. Dan, older than it should. I like how it is older than it should. Shouldn't it be Dan older than it should be? Maybe not. Hopefully you're not one of those people that insists that everybody speaks to them in the Queen's English. Somebody pointed out the other day that one of my videos that, has got like a couple million views or whatever, I make a grammatical error. I use the word criteria in singular instead of plural. And they sent me an expletive-laden comment or, observation about how they think I'm some kind of charlatan because I did that. Yeah, obviously I was not hired for my communication and public relations abilities. I'm a technical guy, and I've built businesses. The communication and presentation side of it is a side effect. And for most of you guys, for a lot of you guys, it's going to be like that too. Someone was asking earlier about, I'm trying to move from a manual labor job to a finance position. How important are the soft skills, or what's going to be the biggest shift? It's going to be that communication skills is going to be a big thing. Some people are just gifted. Some people are extroverts, and this comes naturally. Others of us, like myself, it's something that doesn't come naturally, and you have to force it. And practice makes perfect. What's the worst interview you ever had? I've had some bad ones. I've been on both sides of bad interviews. I think I blocked most of that stuff. No specific thing comes to my mind, but I remember being absolutely livid. You can tell a lot of that is condensed into a sort of general dislike of a lot of recruiters, which is weird. I have a weird relationship with it because I've had to hire people, and also I've taught recruiters in university. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship there. I know there's some talented people there, and I've seen great recruiters at work, but I've encountered a lot of bad ones. I've also encountered a lot of very unprofessional people in interviews, like hiring managers, in particular other CEOs and business owners who will tell you in an interview, they will comment on your resume or on your background and say like, that's crap, or, that's a bad thing to have, or what makes, I remember I was interviewed by someone who was some high executive. I actually did a video on this a while ago. A couple of years ago, I recalled a lot of the instances. I actually did some research too on old emails and things to remember, like, okay, it was this company. And I put them into a video. But somebody actually told me, who invited me down for an interview. This was the chief technical officer, it was like a head of engineering or something, and said, what makes you think you're qualified for this job? As they were reading my resume. And it's like, I'm thinking well, look, you have my resume, you read it. If you don't think I'm qualified, what the hell am I doing here? Why are you wasting both our time inviting me down if that's true. If it's not true, what are you trying to prove? Is this some kind of stress test? That's what I'm thinking. So I answered politely and I said, well, I have this, and this. I mean, yeah, that's what you need. And I have done this type of work for the last X many years. And I remember as I was talking, this person is like doing this. It's like, now, I mean, that alone, like not to act like a total spoiled jackass or anything, but that alone made me say, I'm withdraw my application. Not to the person's face, but just to the HR person afterwards. They initiated a conversation with me, and I responded with that. As an interviewer, okay, I see that. I've had all kinds. I've had people get upset. I've had people like totally like they just don't if you see what I'm saying, they don't understand the first thing about like what the job involves or even what it's like to be an employee or something. I've had people tell me I'm not going to let anyone tell me what to do. It's like, okay, well, this is for a job where you have a supervisor, buddy, So yeah, I've seen a bunch of things. Rafi says, I want to give thanks to you for the great tips in interviewing. I just got a job at I just got a job in a quite reputable company because of it. Congratulations, Rafi. That's great news. You obviously did a fantastic job in the whole hiring process and you interviewed like a boss. So way to go. Mandy says, I had an interview and they asked me my 5-year goal and 10-year goal. Again, I got confused. They didn't ask you the 50-year goal? Look, the short answer for those questions, what they want to hear is that whatever your goals are, it's going to be to work there. And I want to work right here. Right? That's what they want to hear. That's what everybody wants to hear. I don't want to hire you if your loyalties are elsewhere, right? You're only doing this until your music career takes off, or you're only doing this because you failed the entrance exam to get into this. That's not what people want to hear, right? So your goal in 5 years, like that's kind of this, they think they're so clever, like this kind of sneaky way of surreptitiously asking this question about what you really want to do, right? Most people haven't made plans like 5 years or 10 years ahead. I mean, who does that? Who has a 10-year goal, especially when they're young? You might have like vague ideas of what you'd maybe like to do, but nothing like really planned. Because a big part of our plans are also responding to the situation we find ourselves in. If new opportunities open up or come along, obviously you're going to veer off and follow those, right? So it's another bullshit question. Am I allowed to say that? I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. So look, the answer I recommend for that type of question is just to say, I expect to be advancing based on my capabilities. There you go. And then you shut the hell up and you allow them to move on. Because the more you talk in response to this question, it's like they're giving you more rope to hang yourself. The more chance you're going to say something that they go, that indicates that this person might not want to do this for the rest of their lives, and therefore they look like a bad candidate. Okay? So try not to engage on that question. It's a question that's designed to entrap people. Okay? Give them a nice, polite, professional answer, and then let them move on. I like this name. Yay! That's your name. Yay! Any tips on moving into product management from a franchise or brand growth consultant? No, not especially. I mean, that's very general. What product? Like what industry are you in? And a brand growth consultant, like what is that? Is that an entry-level job, or are you out there actively selling franchises, which can be a very high-level job? So you need to give me a little bit more to go on. It's hard to give blanket response that applies very generally. Thank you, John Miller. Killso77 says, I'm in my final year and looking to graduate after this year, and communication has been exactly what I've been trying to focus on. Excellent, Killso77. When I was reading that a moment ago about what you said about graduating, it's like I was thinking of when I was in university and stuff. Or like when you say graduating, I assume that means like university, college, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's a whole lifetime away for me, and it's really. I know this is totally cheesy, but it's like you don't really realize like how much possibility is before you when you're at that age. The world is absolutely yours for the taking. And we tend to, because we're not really prepared for this whole, like, what are we going to do for money thing? Where how to get a job is part of that. We tend to be afraid of it. We tend to feel totally overwhelmed by it. I mean, there are other possibilities too than just getting a job. I mean, something that I have a lot of expertise is in starting businesses. A lot of people can start a business with just their computer or just their phone and a computer, and they never need to get a job for the rest of their lives. And that's a very real possibility, and it's only becoming more common. But yes, communications is extremely important. Those soft skills in the end are really, I mean, who knew? Those are the things that matter the most. If there's anything that's going to help you build a career and rise through the ranks, you may think it would be accomplishments. And yes, those are important. But the single most important thing for like having a career and climbing the ladder and all this kind of stuff is having your soft skills together. Okay? Communication being the most important. Closely followed by interpersonal skills, how you work with people, or conflict resolution skills. Extremely important. That's the stuff that when you tack that onto the technical skills that a lot of people have coming out of school, that's what makes you a real force to be reckoned with, why people want to promote you. A lot of that learning does happen on the job though. Okay? Interacting with people, dealing with awkward people, dealing with awkward situations, dealing with conflicts of interest, dealing with, sort of ethical gray areas, like stuff like that. That's where the real learning is. Buteween says, I took your tips and got hired. Thanks. Great. Congratulations. That must, I'm sure you're very relieved after that. John Miller says, should I apply for jobs that require a bit more experience than the one I have? For example, I have 2 years of experience and they require 3 years minimum. Yes, totally. When they write those requirements, they really don't, they don't put a lot of thought into it, and they really don't know what should be on there. That's what a lot of people don't realize. A lot of those are arbitrary anyway. They just need something to filter people out with. Like, you might have a general idea of some things that you should have, but precisely, no. So whether you have 2 years or 3 years, doesn't matter. The only person that cares about that, so the only people that care about that are recruiters. And I'm not being mean, it's because recruiters, their job is to find candidates that have whatever requirements that they've been given. That's their whole job. That's what makes their job sometimes challenging, right? That's why it's a thing to have that job. But, I mean, once again, everybody's asking in terms of applying for jobs. The real elephant in the room is you should work on networking, because that's where all the jobs are. That's where like 75% of all the jobs are that people get are in networking. You don't get hired because you're an absolute stranger with no ties to the company and they hire you based on your resume. That does happen. But what's far more common is that people get hired because they already know someone in the company that says, hey, this person here's really good. I know them. They're a hard worker. They're trustworthy. You should talk to them. And the hiring manager, who doesn't know anybody, says like, yeah, sure, whatever, let's give them a shot. And if that person works out okay, they'll say, hey, we'll hire you. Because if nothing else, we've gotten a personal recommendation for you. Someone here says that you're good. So in the absence of anything else from the other candidates, that tends to win, right? This is all with the assumption that you've got the basic technical requirements, okay? But beyond the basics, that's the stuff that really matters, okay? Now listen, I have to say this every live stream, okay? If you're young, you're not tuned into that, you don't want to know anything about it, that's fine. Everybody starts out by applying for jobs, by answering job postings, okay? That's how most of us start out. However, the reality is that beyond the basic jobs, the worker level, if you want to get higher and higher jobs, increasingly you get those through networking. And the good news is that you don't have to be a raging extrovert who hangs out with a million people all the time and loves it to be able to do that. Okay, a lot of introverts can do this successfully. A lot of young people can do this successfully. If you are interested in learning more about that, I do have some videos on my YouTube channel that cover it. They give you a little sort of sampling of some of the kind of the general idea what it's about. There's a playlist I have on my channel. What the hell is it called? It's called How to Tap the Hidden Job Market. It's something like 6 or 7 videos. They're very short. Check those out. That give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about. If you want to really learn that stuff and open up a lot of doors for yourself, okay, I've tried to put all of that together in one place, and that's my Get Hired course that's at the bottom of the screen. There we go. You can check that out, and that may be of some help to you, okay? But like worrying about like 2 years or 3 years, I mean, apply anyway, okay? And a lot of that can be negated by just talking to the recruiter. A lot of times you could contact the recruiter if you have their email address, not to send in the application, but to say, hey, I have this. Do you think it makes sense for me to apply for this job? And if they say, yeah, you look like you're qualified, sure. Then you apply for it. Then you say, well, based on your recommendation, here's my application as per the recommendation. And then if you have to talk to more people, you say like, well, this person suggested I apply for the job, so that's why I'm applying. And already it starts to feel like a referral. You see, I mean, you can play these kind of games. And stupid as it sounds, this stuff actually works in a lot of situations. Anyway, Dan, older than it should, says, if you have a lot of experience, 20 plus years, but have never been in a lead position, is it a red flag? I'm a software developer. Not necessarily. It can be, but usually not. The key is to have the soft skills, okay? So if you go there and in a job interview where you're demonstrating your soft skills, you come across as a person who would be a great boss. You can speak really clearly. You're friendly and you're enjoyable to deal with. You're articulate enough to be able to say what you mean and not trip over your words, unlike what I do half the time. And you're just easy to get along. If they ask you an awkward question, you do your best to not amplify the awkwardness, but to just kind of smooth it over. You kind of, have a bit of a smile on your face and all this kind of stuff. If they ask you questions like, how would you resolve a conflict between two employees? You explain the right thing to do, the proper way of doing it, and they go, okay. So you're demonstrating that you're capable of being in that role, okay? So that's going to be the biggest testament. That's going to win out over somebody who has supervisory experience on their resume, but then when you interview them, they're awkward. They look upset at being asked certain questions. They're not very likable. They don't have a lot of charisma. You just don't click as people, right? So a lot of times demonstrating the soft skills is all you need to do. And like anything else, practice makes perfect. Killso77 says, based on his previous advice, John Miller, I'd say he seems to believe you should apply. And if you get an interview, you can explain how that experience speaks to them. Yeah. I think that's an accurate appraisal. I need another drink break. Between says, I got asked, what's my 5-year goal? And I'm glad I didn't say, I want to take your job. Yeah, I've heard that so many times on the internet. I'm going to be in your job. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm sure to hire you now. It's like, there's a lot of odd things on the internet. And there's a lot of, shall we say, interesting opinions and interesting advice there too. And now I'm one of them. And it feels phenomenal. Plaid Moose says, any tips on determining if your contract is going to be extended? Mine is up in 2 months and I'm freaking out. I don't know how to tactfully bring it up. Listen, here's what I would do. Okay. If it were me, and I don't know your situation, but just what I would do is, I would go to your immediate boss. And if he or she is not the decision maker, I would go to whoever is, okay? The decision maker on whether you stay or whether you go, okay? I would go up to them at a time and an occasion when you are not pestering them. They're not like stressed out, having to deal with a million things, and then you show up. I mean, maybe the end of the day, maybe a little bit after hours even, the pressure is off and they're just in their office or wherever they are. And I would say, look, you got a minute? And they'd say, presumably yes. You say, okay, listen, I just want you to know, I've been here for 6 months or however long it's been. And I've learned a hell of a lot. I've worked with some great people and I enjoy my work. And I know that my contract is coming up or it's terminating soon. And I just want you to know that if there's a chance, if there is a possibility of my contract being extended, I would really like that because I've enjoyed working here and I am enjoying working here. That's all. Something like that. I mean, obviously you'd work on the wording a little bit more than what I'm doing now, but just communicate that kind of thing. And they go, oh, okay, nice to know. You don't really put them under any pressure. You don't force them to answer a question. You just say, look, I just would like you to know that I feel this way about the job and about working here and the work I do and the people I work with and this kind of thing. And if it's possible that I could continue, I just want you to know that I would enjoy that very much. That's all. And that can work wonders if they have any power over the situation. That can help to persuade them that they should extend your contract. So that's how I would do it. I wouldn't wait for them to ask you a question or anything. I would just initiate that. But you got to pick the moment. You got to go to them when they're in a good mood and they're not stressed and everything's hunky-dory, everything's fine. Okay, and I would just sort of plant that seed. S. Walter says, why does HR ask what my friends think of me or how my friends would describe me? Usually because they themselves don't have any friends. No, I'm just joking. Listen, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get to know you without putting in any of the time necessary to get to know you. That's what they're trying to do. And they're trying to gain an insight into the type of person you are. And this is their feeble attempt to do that. Okay? Now, one of the reasons why they ask these types of questions is because if you know what they're doing, it's so transparent. But occasionally you do get people that don't have that awareness of what's going on. And when they get asked a question like this, they would say, they get asked how would your friends describe you? And they say something like, oh, well, I think people like me, but I could probably come across as really unreliable and self-centered, And they say, oh, okay, thank you, right? eliminated based on that. This is a very self-centered and unreliable candidate. So nope, they're a high-risk candidate, eliminated. We're going to go with somebody else, right? It's more of like a question where it's not so much to get good things about you. It's just to check for any red flags, okay? So there's a lot of questions like that. I call them elimination questions because they're basically designed to eliminate you if you say the wrong thing. It's not a question you want to be asked. Okay? The questions you want to be asked are things like, what can you bring to the job? You know? Or why should we hire you? You know, those are great questions to be asked. You could say, well, listen, let me tell you. First of all, if you look at my resume, I have this, and I have this, and I have that, and I know that's what you guys are looking for. Also, I have experience doing this, experience doing that, and experience doing this thing, which I know is of particular importance to this role. On top of that, I'm a really friendly person. I am great at resolving conflict, and I have all these soft skills, and blah, 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 blah. That's a great question. You want to talk for a long time there, right? But you don't want to engage on these types of questions that are just checking for negative things. You want to sort of shut it down, give a polite response, but shut it down and get off that question as soon as possible. You certainly don't ever give them anything negative about yourself. I don't care what anybody says. And it's funny because I see some recruiters kind of get upset when I say that and other people say that, and they say, oh no, what we're trying to do is we're trying to see if this person has the self-awareness to recognize that, you know, they're imperfect in some way and that they've taken steps to improve on themselves. It's like, yeah, that sounds very pretty, doesn't it? Unfortunately, in the real world, they're not that sophisticated. Your big reward for sharing your actual weaknesses with them is that they then eliminate you on the spot because another candidate hasn't given them any weaknesses and you have. It's called the prisoner dilemma. It's part of game theory. And this is what they do. It's a silly game. Plaid Moose says, any tips on determining if your contract is going to... Okay, I did that one. How's that app? You know, you can't have a name like that without sort of delivering. I mean, now I'm dying to know. I have an interview lined up next week in my dream company. Right on. I will be graduating next year, and the interview is for a full-time job after I graduate. I'm worried about it. Don't be worried about it. Listen, do your best. That's all you can do. And there will be more opportunities. So even if this one doesn't work out, there will be more. Okay? Mark my words. I believe I am prepared for the technical interview, but I'm still scared and anxious. I'm always looking at more interview questions. How can I calm my nerves? Listen, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. But it may help to know that, look, just put a couple of facts together here. Number one, as I've said before in the stream, the biggest factor for passing a job interview is random chance, okay? It depends who's interviewing you. Sometimes they will like you, sometimes they won't. It depends what type of person they are. It depends what totally illogical things are important to them, okay? They have rejected some of the greatest geniuses since the beginning of time. You know what I'm saying? In the modern era, they've rejected some of the people that we've all known and heard of, like people like Einstein. They all got rejected because people weighed them up and judged them and said, no, that person doesn't have what it takes, right? I mean, how wrong can you be? I did a video where they rejected the people who decide like what bands and artists to give a recording deal to. They rejected the Beatles, for God's sake, the single best-selling musical group of all time to this day. And they rejected them and they're saying, no, they're not, they're a non-starter. It's like, are you serious? You know, this is the reality of it. Okay. It's not a reflection on you. You go in there, you do your best. Okay. And that's all you can do. The thing is, it's like sales. You're selling yourself, and talk to any salesperson. They will tell you, it's like, no matter how good your pitch is and how skilled you are, you're not going to make every sale. Okay. But the good news is that there's going to be more opportunities after this one. And sooner or later, it'll just work out. Okay. And you will get it. Okay. I know it's still stressful. Nothing I say will make you feel great about this. Okay. But just keep that in the back of your mind. You're going to be fine. Okay. If you have some talent, you have some skills. If you're going to do anything, just try and work, like I said, on your soft skills. And the number one thing is just being likable. Okay. Especially in technical areas. Let me tell you, I'm a technical guy myself, and technical people are very, very smart. They have that in their favor. However, they are suffering from a considerable handicap, and that is that they, generally speaking, are not that great as people. They're not that exciting and wonderful to work with. And that's where they can use improvement. So I don't know if that really helps, but yeah. Getting a job is more than just the technicalities. Despite what it seems like, it's much more than the technical skills. Shona says, is 26 old? That's an interesting philosophical question. Why are you asking that, Shona? No. I think anyone under 45 is like a young whippersnapper to me. So yeah, 26 is not. When I remember being in my 20s and thinking that, like, oh my God, any day now I'm going to be past it. I'm going to be over the hill. Life is over. And then when you realize that, like, life goes on for many, many more decades, and that's when it actually kicks in to being enjoyable. It's not old at all. Don't worry about it. You're doing fine. People talking to each other. John Miller says, ×3. KillSo77. If there's any informal tips or any general advice you've left out of your videos because it seems obvious, what would that be? Any advice that seems obvious? Listen, the problem with YouTube is that you have to give advice in sort of 5-minute clips, right? It's possible to talk about little tips here and there and there and there. How to answer this question, one thing you shouldn't do, a couple things you should remember. The problem is not all knowledge is like that. As anybody who's been to school knows, a lot of knowledge builds and builds and builds like a pyramid, right? I mean, so I've left out all of that because you can't talk about that because it would have to be a 3-hour video or a course. And networking is like that. Like, it's not just one little tip or 2 little things here and there. It's an entire construct of realities, principles, which then lead to techniques, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's very hard to talk about that stuff on YouTube because, you know, I'm either answering one question at a time or I'm doing like a 5-minute video at a time. It's very hard. So all I can say would be learn about soft skills, learn about networking, and it will serve you for the rest of your life, at least certainly your career. That's where it's at. Okay? Professionals, true professionals, people that make a lot of money, people that are successful in what they do, people that have decision-making power, they don't apply for jobs on Indeed or the internet. The problem is on YouTube, most people on YouTube are in their 20s. So a lot of people either are not really ready for that or they're just resistant to it. Whenever I start to talk about that stuff, I got a lot of pushback from people that either refuse to believe things work like that, or they see it as some giant conspiracy or some giant iniquity. It's not. It's just extending your communication skills to the next level. So that's what I would have learned sooner, like 10 years sooner if I had known about it. Someone says, I'm going to have an interview from a leading investment bank in the risk management field. Do you have any advice for me, please? Appreciated. Well, investment banks, they're large organizations. They're very conservative organizations. They place a lot of value in education. So if you have an MBA or you have a master's degree or something like that, they are going to value that. A lot of places in the private sector, especially in smaller companies, they don't value that stuff as much. It's more informal. They are going to respect experience from companies that they've heard of and that they can verify. So if you have experience working at smaller companies that they've never heard of, they're not going to value that experience very much. And the blanket advice I would have is that if they have a certain culture, which they do, the closer you match that culture, the better it will go for you. Okay, so starting with the way you dress, the way you look. People in investment banks, they dress a certain way, they look a certain way, they talk a certain way, they act a certain way. You go in there, you look like them, you sound like them, you act like them, they'll think, this person fits. They want someone that's not going to rock the boat. They want someone that's going to play by their rules. And the closer you can match that, the better. So if you can do research into how they act, how they talk, how they dress, that's going to help you. Okay? Human beings like people who are like them. And I mean that in the sense of, you have the same opinions, you have the same background, you have the same experiences, you have the same training, you have the same worldview. Like rightly or wrongly, that's what people are attracted to. It's a huge Achilles heel for a lot of people. It results in groupthink. It results in all kinds of bad things. But unfortunately, that's just how people think. And if you're interviewing with a large organization, they are not going to value the rebel, the person who's a total individual, who does everything their own way and doesn't take anything at face value. They're not going to value that person. Between you and me, that's the person that is the most interesting. But they're going to see that because that's obvious. Just the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you act, that's immediate. They can see that. They don't see your skills immediately. They see how you look, how you sound. That's immediate. And if it's not matching theirs, it will be regarded as a turnoff in most situations. So unfortunately, we have to cater to that. There's plenty of time to push the boundaries when you're in the company working there. But to get the job, you want to focus on your similarities with them. How to start the conversation about promotion. That I don't like that type question. I'm sorry, because it's artificial. And it entirely depends on the context and who you're talking to and what they respond to. You have to tailor communications to the receiver. Okay? So there isn't a blanket answer of how to do it and what to say, because that's going to vary depending on your situation, your context, the culture, and the receiver. We're getting towards the end of this. I'm going to have to sign off in about 10 minutes here. Dan, older than it should, says, clicking with the interviewer is indeed one of the most important things. You could be less experienced but still get the job. Yes, absolutely correct. Shona, I'm sorry for the baseless question. LOL. Don't worry about it. I'm just insecure in interviews and I haven't had a real job except a manager's cell phone sales store at 26. I want to shoot for more sophisticated jobs. I just feel underqualified and I do have my bachelor's, just a late bloomer. Yeah, don't worry, Shona. You're not alone. There's a lot of people in that situation. I'm going to do a shout out. There's a YouTube channel that I came across the other day. I think it's called Decker Shadow. It's this guy who does reviews of like horror films and things like that. Anyway, it's weird, but I actually like that channel. I've seen a few of that guy's videos. And one thing that he does is he talks about behind the scenes, like, him doing a YouTube channel and all this. And he was talking about being like, I don't know if he's 30 or 35 or whatever he is. But he doesn't have any post-secondary education. I think he might have dropped out of high school. I can't remember what he said. He said stuff like this, and how it's limited his job prospects. And what? At the same time, I'm watching his YouTube channel. Now, his YouTube channel is successful. It's high quality. He has, it's a job. Anyone who does a YouTube channel, I can tell you now, it really is a job. And I kind of do these things. I'm practically phoning it in half the time, but other people do like really, high end videos and stuff. And it's a job. So this guy, not only is he articulate and he has all these great personal attributes, he's also demonstrating his capability not only to run a successful YouTube channel, he's making a lot of money, but all these professional skills that are highly sought after by a lot of employers, and he is one of the biggest cases I've seen for people that, they might not have like advanced education, but they have all the skills and attributes of like a really leading employee, high value employee that a lot of companies would love to hire. Highly trainable, technically competent. You also have sales skills, marketing skills, public relations skills, all that kind of stuff. And, there's a lot of people, to me, he's kind of like a poster child of a lot of people like that. I think smart employers don't let your resume stand in your way too much if you're a highly accomplished person. Now, for Shona, it's like I was saying earlier in the stream, one way to short circuit a lot of this problem you have that a lot of people have, it's like a catch-22. How can you get a good job if you don't have experience? And if you don't have, how can you get experience without having a good job? It's like one way to short circuit that, okay, one way is not to play by their rules. Start your own thing, do something on your own. The example I used was a YouTube channel, but there's many, many things you can do. Not only will that refine all your skills and demonstrate that you have these skills, you will learn them, but you might even luck out and this thing that you do ends up being your livelihood that makes you money. So, you know what I mean? Like, I used to mentor a lot of startup founders several years ago. And I've started a couple of startups back in my life, in my 20s and stuff. And, that's a valid way to make a living. And it's certainly possible. It's just like you need skills to get a job. You need skills to start up a company, but neither of them are particularly hard. We get the wrong impression by listening to a lot of HR people and companies, and they make it seem like this thing is like insurmountably hard. It's not, and a lot of what they say is BS too. They tell you that there are rules that aren't there. You know what I mean? And one of the things I like about networking is it shows you that a lot of those rules are BS. All these requirements for jobs that they say you have to have, you can avoid all of that by getting a job through networking. Anyway, I won't go on that soapbox rant again. If you're interested in that, I have a course about it. Check out my Get Hired course. There's a link in the description. Here's the little graphic there that everyone loves. But yeah, okay, so someone says just apply like crazy. Yes, that's one thing you can do. But there are also a lot of other ways to get jobs. Don't just do that one thing. A lot of the other ways are actually much more promising. Also try to learn new skills, extend your skills. That's the key. Know how to do more. Yeah, it's important learning skills, but the problem is if nobody believes that you have them and it's hard to demonstrate them, that's a real obstacle. But once again, you're playing by their rules. Moses Eaton says, I was asked recently in a financial institution interview, what do you understand about the term customer centricity? Please, what should be a more acceptable response? Well, it's funny. To give you a flippant response, as I was reading that, I was thinking they're probably asking you because they have no idea what that means. When was the last time you had a really good, warm, fuzzy feeling at a bank or a financial services institution? Yeah, accountants and finance people, in my experience, and I have a master's in finance, by the way, so I can say this. A lot of them they're really lacking in the people skills department. You know, go to marketing, you see the opposite. Look, I'll give you the marketing response, which is the actual response. I don't know what these people want to hear within their culture, but the answer to that question is that businesses are successful when they are customer centric. That means that in order for them to do something, they first have to run a litmus test to see if the customer wants it, meaning that the customer is willing to pay for it. If the customer doesn't want to pay for it and it doesn't add any value for them, then maybe you should reconsider whether that's a thing you should do, okay? The most successful businesses in the world are run from the basis of customer centricity, okay? If we can bring the most value to our customers, that's what they will want. That's what they are willing to pay for. That works out best for them, and that works out best for us. And that's why it's incredibly important. Now, beyond that, I don't know what they would want to hear. It depends what they're in their little world, how they interpret that term. John Miller says, you missed my question. What was your question? Let's go back here. Oh, here we go. Do you think that multiple certificates plus experience could be comparable to a bachelor degree? No. Should someone with certificates apply for a job that requires a bachelor's? Yes. Yeah. That's like saying, if I make you 5 cupcakes, does that count as a wedding cake? The answer is no. It's not a wedding cake. It's 5 cupcakes. It's something completely different. It'll never be a wedding cake. It might superficially look like the same thing, but it's not. We all know this. You know, if you're capable of cooking 5 cupcakes and someone says, could you cater my wedding? You could say yes, because you can maybe ramp up your skills and cook a wedding cake or prepare a wedding cake, whatever you do, a wedding cake. I'm bad at making similes, but you get the idea, right? It's not the same as a bachelor degree. Like the most idiotic thing I've ever seen on a job application is like saying, we're looking for someone with an engineering degree or equivalent experience. Like that's absolutely weird. It's like saying, I'm looking for someone with a medical license or equivalent experience. Like what's the equivalent experience to having a medical license? Like if you've never been to medical school, but you've worked for 25 years as a paramedic, does that mean you can do heart surgery? Of course it doesn't. It's not, there is no equivalent in terms of experience, right? But these requirements are written by people who themselves don't understand what's necessary for the job. And they don't want to admit this. So they have to write something. So that's why they come up with requirements like that are written on job postings. I know that doesn't help you, but that's the reality of what's going on, you know? So yes, go to the job interview. And if they give you an interview, they're demonstrating that they didn't really need that bachelor degree in the first place. They're willing to consider somebody with less than a bachelor degree. Okay. If you've been doing that work for many years, sure, it qualifies you. For some jobs, it won't, but for a lot of jobs, it will. So apply anyway. And if you get an interview and they directly ask you about it, you know what to say. You say, I don't have the bachelor degree, but I do have this, and I've been working in that role for this many years. I've done every facet of it. I have all these things that can show that I know what I'm doing. I've been in those jobs for many years. So I know this stuff. That's not really going to be a concern, and I'm prepared to answer any question anyone might have about doing the actual work, and a lot of times that'll work. Who's the guy with the YouTube channel you're talking about? I think his name is Decker Shadow. I'm just going to pull up a window and I'm just going to see if I can give you an actual answer on that right now. Shadow, not shad down. Yeah, Decker Shadow. So Decker. Like, I'm not endorsing this guy. I don't know him. I just saw this the other day. Decker, Decker Shadow, Shado. Decker Shadow. That's the guy who I was referring to. And I think it's great. I think we need more examples of that, just to throw in the face of like a lot of these organizations and a lot of, quite frankly, a lot of some of these HR people that tell you that you're not qualified. How could you think you're qualified? Remember that story I told earlier? How could you possibly have the arrogance to think that you're qualified to do this job? Only a genius can do this job, not someone like you. How many times do we hear that? And 99% of the time, it's complete weapons grade horse shit, if you pardon my language. Hey folks, hit that like button and show your appreciation. Thanks for all. Thank you very much, Christine. That's very kind of you. And I do appreciate it. Robert Berg, what can you do when an interviewer doesn't ask the questions or give you the opportunity to prove why you are the best fit for a role? Well, they're just proving to you that they're an idiot. Look, here's the deal. You could take a couple of different approaches. You could volunteer the information. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to behave like a politician. You know what politicians do? It's that cliched thing where they never answer the question they were asked. Instead, they go ahead and start answering the question they wished they were asked. Now, I'm not saying you should not answer their question, but what I am saying is that you should answer their question and then say the thing that you want to say. Okay? So, for example, they ask you, what are your weaknesses? Well, you answer the question. I'm great at this, but sometimes it can lead to this, but then I fix it by doing this. And the other thing is that I can take a lot of what I've learned in my bachelor degree and apply that because I've learned over my 10 years of experience that this is how you resolve conflict and blah, blah, and all these other things I have, right? So you can try and do that. It takes a little bit of skill. But once again, if you do mock interviews to prepare for your job interview, if you have like a family member or a friend or anyone just loafing around, get them to help you do an interview. Like tell them to ask you a few questions. You could get them to read them off the internet, or you could just, give them a list, or you could tell them to make up some questions and you practice answering them. And you can also practice injecting the stuff you want to say into the interview. You're absolutely welcome, S. Walters. My pleasure, and I'm glad you're here. Bill, do you provide private mock interviews? No, unfortunately, I don't. I'd have to charge something like $200 an hour, and not many people have that. That's a great response. Thank you for your reply. I appreciate that it can be difficult to answer such general questions. Yeah, that's the problem. A lot of answers depend on the context, so it's hard to always give general advice. Jay Cameron, did you do Titanic? If so, I got a bone to pick with you over that last Terminator movie, because you appeared in person on talk shows telling everyone it would be the best movie ever made. And it wasn't. Hi, can you do a session for career changers? Pretty please. We could talk about that. I'm getting right to the end of this live stream now. In fact, I only have like a couple of minutes. But yeah, we could talk about that. That's okay. Changing careers is a great example because look, If you're playing by the rules of recruiters, where they like to measure everything in terms of years of experience, right? And they need years of experience to do almost any job, right? Well, think of it. How would one ever change careers? Because by definition, you will have 0 years experience in the job you're trying to move to, right? Because it's a different career. You've never done that stuff before. You're changing careers. So if the only way they'll hire you is if you have experience in it, then think about it. Like, no one would ever change careers, right? The reason why people can do this is because they go outside those rules. They don't talk to the recruiter. They talk to a hiring manager proactively. And they say something like, hello, my name is X. And, I've had a long and illustrious career in this. I've got 20 years under my belt doing this. And I've got great skills in this area. But I've always held a passion for doing this thing that you guys do. And listen, I think I would make a great person in that role. And if ever you're looking for somebody, please let me know. I would really appreciate, because I know I'd love to be able to change careers and do this thing. I know I'd be great at it. If ever you're looking for somebody, I'll be able to deliver. So just keep my name in mind. Something like that, something that's much better phrased than that, but that kind of thing. That's how people change careers. And when you're dealing with somebody in person and you say stuff like that to them, if they have a job to fill, a lot of times they'll give you a chance, And if they already like you and you're demonstrating some great, personal skills and stuff like this, that can really carry a lot of weight. And that's how most people change careers. Damn, this channel is good, but I'm in Asia and it's 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, I did a couple of live streams at like 3 a.m. my time. So I don't know, is that probably like lunchtime for you guys? Yeah, actually all these live streams are posted over on my second channel. So if you missed the live stream, go to my second channel, The Company's Expert 2, and you can see all these there. There's a link actually in the description box, right just below this video, to my second channel. So go there and subscribe, and you can see all these. This live stream itself will be moved over there within a few hours. So that's where it'll end up. I wish. Yeah, but that was really a bad movie, though. I got quite upset with that. I'd pay $150 to have a mock interview with you. Well, thank you very much. Listen. Go find like a family member or a friend, because you don't want to be paying by the hour for this stuff. You want to do a lot of it. Practice makes perfect. You don't want to do just one or two. You want to do a whole bunch, okay? The more you do, the better you get, okay? And it doesn't have to cost you a fortune. Executives pay for that service. Like that's one of the reasons why private HR firms exist, because they provide a lot of services like this stuff. They'll do psychometrics on you. They'll do mock interviews for you. And then they'll give you like feedback of what they think. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. But executives pay through the nose for that kind of thing. But you shouldn't have to. Do you really need like a HR person to do this with? No, you just need a buddy there. Most of the practice is you remembering what to say when they ask a certain question, right? That's what most of the practice is. Okay. And for that, you really don't need some kind of expert or genius on the other side of the table. So anyone will do. Anyone who's willing to help will be fine, for the vast majority of situations. I have a golden rule that if the interviewer is rude or unprofessional, it's a test or sample of how it's going to be like. Yes, most of the time that's true. Not always. I have seen good jobs that lie beyond some kind of gatekeeper who's very rude. I have seen that. But usually you're absolutely correct. Yeah, if they can't even treat like a job candidate with respect and professionalism, then that's a a really bad omen, put it that way. Shona Hill, are you hiring? No, sorry. I haven't worked in a company for like years. Is it coming up? Isn't quite 10 years, but quite a few years. I've just been by myself, just making money. Proof that you can do this. Anybody can do this. Remember, I just want to put the footnote in there. Getting a job isn't the only way to make money. Okay. And there are ways that would surprise you that are easy to do, that don't take a ton of cash to start. They just take a little bit of skill. And they can be an extension of this stuff. And if you are between jobs, and like someone was mentioning earlier, time is passing, now life is long and that's fine. But in the meantime, you could be developing your skills. You could be having accomplishments. You could be learning about stuff. There's a lot of things you can do that, not only refine your skills, but they also lead you to being independently wealthy. Okay. That's another conversation for a different day. But just remember, just keep that in your back pocket. James Cameron, thank you for answering. Well, Jay Cameron. You could position yourself as like little Jimmy Cameron. You're just the younger brother. And Dan the older says, thank you, Bill. Have a great day. Yes, thank you, Dan. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everybody who is here. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you got some value from this. I could plug all my stuff. I don't really enjoy doing that. Look, I have a couple of courses. You could see them there. If those are interesting to you, check them out. Links in the description. You can join my channel as a member. You get a bunch of other stuff. Subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And I do these every week on Wednesday. I might be taking a break next week. We'll see. But usually every Wednesday, I'm experimenting with the time. So it might be at a different time of day. But thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. I will see you on the next one. James says, that's a good point. Would love to do a video about doing your own thing. I know you have to go. Yeah, listen, I have some videos on my channel. They're older videos. Go to my YouTube channel page and it has a bunch of different playlists. And in the past, I've done playlists about like starting companies and stuff like that. So if that's interesting, check those out. Cheers from Trinidad and Tobago. Awesome. Why have a second channel? I don't even know about it. It's to throw all my live streams. It's just YouTube has some weird requirements for, whether they promote you or not. So well worth my time today. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Okay. Thanks, everyone. You guys are awesome. Don't worry. This is a bad time in everybody's lives, but there is a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you so much and take care.